to Netflix, they reported a drop in net subscribers for the first time in 10 years, and the stock dropped 35%, market cap from 155 billion to about 98 billion. According to Bloomberg, as of Wednesday, Netflix was the worst performing S&P 500 so far in 2022. Stock down 63% year to date. Ackman dumped his entire stake and booked a $430 million loss. And a large part of this was because they didn't hit their 2.5 million or so target increase in subscribers. And they, in fact, lost all 700,000 Russian subscribers as part of boycotting Russia because of the Ukraine war. What do we think is happening here? Is this a bellwether, Chamath, for something more important going on? Or is this just Netflix not executing well?
I think there's a macro thing and then there's a Netflix specific thing. The macro thing is that we are learning the broad sweeping impact of Apple's privacy changes, in my opinion. You first saw it flow through into Facebook's earnings and basically them saying this is going to be really tough. And you had Netflix, even if you add back the Russian subscribers, basically spend almost $600 million in the quarter on customer acquisition to effectively, they would have generated 500,000 subscribers net of churn, right? Which was still about 1.5 million under where they needed to be. So the point is that I think Netflix in some ways was a little bit of a canary in the coal mine for the shrinking effectiveness of online advertising. And I think that's why you then saw 2 days later, Facebook got taken to the woodshed in 2 days, was down, now it's down, 15, 20%. Google, I think, has been down a lot today. It's just getting absolutely smoked relative to the market. So that's the macro issue, which is, I think, it's really hard for these ads to be as effective as they used to be. And it's only going to get worse because Google has also said that they're going to implement a lot of the same versions of what Apple did inside of Android. So customer acquisition is going up. So if you look at then all the companies that have to live and die on CAC, it's going to be an expensive road. That's the macro thing, I think, that not enough people are talking about. I think the micro thing inside of Netflix is that, people churn out of a service when there isn't enough value. And I think that's the most basic explanation of why so many people are leaving Netflix, is that it's not that valuable. So when you're spending $20 billion a year on content, but people more than ever are leaving the service, you have to inspect how much are you really spending in these areas and what is it actually creating in terms of like library value. Disney Plus, I think, has done an incredible job in a much shorter period of time. Apple, after only a few years, wins the first Oscar of any of the streamers, right? Beating Netflix, even though they've been in there and spent
for best picture.
But I'm saying, so when you put all these things together, I think Netflix probably has lost a little bit of the script, but they're also suffering from a really macro headwind, which is the advertising business is broken.
I would imagine that like total subscribers to streaming services, and if you were to add up total subscription service dollars, it's probably growing a lot.
Oh, for sure.
Netflix's relative share is going down because the quality of the competitors is improving so much. Even companies that are not able to deliver, like CNN shut down CNN Plus this week after investing $300 million in trying to build out the service. I mean, folks are putting serious dollars behind these projects. And so the competition is fierce and they've got deep content libraries behind them. I personally think HBO Max is the best streaming service now.
Awesome.
Followed by Disney Plus, followed by maybe a mix of Amazon, Netflix, and Prime. And so like Netflix's relative value is going down because there's so much other content. When I'm kind of thinking about what to watch, I'm looking at Disney Plus, I'm looking at HBO Max, and I'm like, hey, what should I watch tonight? And then I look at Netflix. Netflix doesn't have a monopoly in content anymore. And so when I've got limited dollars, I personally, I looked at this after we were texting about it. I subscribe to 7 streaming services right now. And if I didn't care as much about how much I was spending per month, I would probably cut 3 of them. And Netflix would
under
probably
100.
Yeah.
You're also then highlighting the second, I think, macro thing that is actually equally important, maybe even more important, which is, the first rule of capitalism says that excess returns will always get competed away. So, Netflix had the run of the place where they were an effective monopoly.
Totally.
And now when everybody else woke up and got religion, they decided to invest and they've created some really compelling content. And so all of those returns will now get spread across 7 or 8 or 9 competitors, which means that just by definition, mathematically, Netflix can't win the way that they used to.
And the network advantage in the streaming model is content and consumers. So you have better content, you get more consumers, you get more money from consumers, you spend more on content. At some point, you get diminishing returns in that network model. And now we're seeing those diminishing returns hit Netflix. They haven't built advantages in search and discovery or in social sharing or other features into the app or into the service that will give them more of a lock-in value. Because all I'm doing is buying is watching.
They're
content,
also 3 times
and
the
I can
price.
go do that elsewhere.
They're also 3 times the price of Disney Plus and other services. So they're in the competition space. People are starting to look at it and go, "Is this worth a
Right.
Disney and an NBC, or is this worth a Hulu and an NBC streaming service?" Sachs, you had something to add?
Well, I mean, I agree with that. I would just add one factor to this, which is what Elon said, which is he said the woke mind virus is making Netflix unwatchable. I mean, the quality of the programming has gone down. I mean, Netflix used to be really good. I can't think of like a show now that I watch on Netflix, and I do watch HBO Max right now and Disney Plus because they got some shows that I like. So I think somehow the programming people at Netflix have gotten out of touch.
Yeah. Are they pandering to that audience, Sachs, do you think? And, similar to kind of how Disney ended up pandering. And do you think that there's broadly this kind of media problem of trying to pander to the wrong audience?
I mean, they almost threw Chappelle off, who's by far the number one comic in American comedy. And they absolutely would have thrown Chappelle off and done what a lot of those employees wanted if they didn't have such a big deal with him, if he wasn't such a big deal.
No, I think they held the line pretty.
There's a lot of groveling. There's a lot of groveling, Jake.
I think they reasonably heard the concerns of their employees and said, "We reasonably disagree.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Company."
Yeah, but
I think
Jason,
they held the line,
yes, maybe. But what I'm saying is that episode revealed that the people who are doing the programming at Netflix obviously they're not I think they've lost touch with where most of the country is.
I will give a shout out. I have not watched a series on Netflix in probably a year.
Ozark? No.
No,
Ozark.
No. But I will give a shout out to Never Have I Ever, which Mindy Kaling created. She's amazing. And that series is incredibly funny and poignant and cool and awesome. But outside of that series, I cannot think of a single reason why I would actually pay for Netflix.
Let me ask you guys a question. So going back to, because there was the whole Disney pandering.
HBO Max, however, oh my God, so good.
The whole industry is suffering this problem. Do you remember the Oscars? We don't even watch it anymore.
This is the question I have for you. Do you guys think that there's a difference culturally in the management of the media companies? So let's go through them. Warner Media, Disney, Netflix, Amazon. And do you think that cultural difference may create an advantage and success? Do you think that Warner Media is operating HBO Max differently because they're culturally
100%.
different?
Yeah.
Because they're culturally different.
HBO has always been culturally different. They have been for auteurs.
HBO sucked for years. They got a few good shows now. It's more like
they've
luck,
always been for auteurs. They always have gone with the vision of the director, the vision of the writer, and taken a lot of risk. When you hear that HBO logo, I agree it's going to be a high-end.
I agree with you. They have some really good shows right now, but until the last couple of years, it was pretty dismal
business. But I mean, to Freeberg's point, that Netflix.
I would say Disney has Marvel, and that's why they have Marvel and Star Wars, and that's kept them extremely relevant.
And Pixar,
well, yes, the IP. They're an IP.
I cannot tell you how much, and the advantage Disney has is the rewatchability of their content. I don't know how many times your kids have all watched Moana. My kids have watched. I've had to watch Moana 107 times already.
Go ahead, let's hear it. Let's hear you. Belt out a Moana song.
You're
welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. And the Star Wars content, as you guys know, you could rewatch Star Wars and Marvel. I mean, like the content is very different on Pixar movies too. You could watch 100 times over. That's very different content. HBO Max is thrilling and engaging and doesn't feel like it's pandering.
HBO right now is operating at the next level. I mean,
so many good shows.
It for me.
But Netflix was 5 years ago, so
I understand. But we're not talking about the past. We're talking about
here's
today.
the thing. Netflix went with these very big deals with big celebrity names. And, I think they just lost their uniqueness in terms of risk taking. So they went with Adam Sandler. No offense to Adam Sandler fans. And they're doing a lot of reality TV now. And if you look at Hulu, like Dope Sick and then The Dropout, if you look at Apple TV, Ted Lasso, We Crashed, and then you look at HBO Max with just Euphoria.
By the way, even I can actually
Euphoria. Can you imagine Euphoria?
Is
on
incredible.
Netflix? It would never be on Netflix.
It would never get made. It would never get made on Netflix.
That's the
I don't
point,
think
right?
they don't want to take risk. HBO is like for adults, it's paid, and they're going to take risk. And Disney can't touch that. I think Hulu's a sleeper. I mean,
Hulu's great. Have you guys watched the series called The Great on Hulu?
no,
It's about Catherine the Great. It is incredible.
There's
I
too
canceled
many
my
good
Hulu.
shows. I can't.
I
keep
canceled
so
my Hulu
good.
subscription.
So good.
I'm watching Severance right now. That's amazing. It's like really like ephemeral.
By the way, I started
like
paying for
sci-fi.
YouTube TV so that I could get streaming cable.
Oh yeah, I do YouTube TV.
I do Hulu. I do.
That's
Hulu
my number
streaming.
one watch thing. It's YouTube TV because I don't.
Do you have YouTube without ads?
Yeah, I do
YouTube
YouTube
without
Premium and
ads
YouTube
is
TV.
such a game
Wait,
changer.
how do you do that?
What?
YouTube
Is it called YouTube Red or Premium? YouTube Premium, it's called.
It's $9 a
What's
month
Red?
to month. You can afford it.
You see no ads on YouTube.
How
Ask
do you-
your
how-
assistant to ask her assistant to sign you up, and you won't have to watch ads on YouTube.
Are
anymore.
you functionally
do
not
that.
able to use the internet now, Chamath?
I actually have people that do it for me.
Do they type in your email password for you?
Yes.
You're like, how does this work? And they're like,
There's a person
you
right
press
there
the Netflix button
that'll
on the remote.
jump in if
Yeah.
I can't get the mouse to work.
He's got the VP of product from Questron who lives in a little shack in the house
God.
next door who comes over and uses the remote for him.